This process. Self-will means, I had to look it up in the dictionary because I'm not all that smart sometimes. Self-will means to have an opinion about somebody or something. And the greatest growth in my recovery lately has I did some real fucked up shit in October. With 4 years clean, I did some really fucked up shit. And my grandson's father had died. And the girl that he was with, the day after I found out he died, was sitting in a meeting and she was there. And, I had two good friends on each side of me. And, she shared, about the poor me, because when anybody dies, it's always about us that aren't going to have that person in our life anymore. And I was infuriated, and because I heard from my grandson, mostly, and it came around to me, and I tore the shit out of this girl in this meeting, like by name, and asked her what part she played in the situation, because I thought I knew some shit. And, telling her she had to live with, what she did for the rest of her life, and fucked up shit. And, so we get through, that period in our lives. And I got a new job about a month ago at this restaurant. And so I go to work, and I see this girl there, and I think, because I've only seen her one time, and it was at that meeting in October, and I'm like, God, is that her? And, she spotted me right away, because who would ever forget some chick that fucking does that to you in a meeting, And, days go by, a couple days, and, this girl was nothing but sweet, kind, and nice to me. And in a genuine way. It wasn't I'm afraid I'm going to kick your ass, you're going to kick my ass. I mean, the shit was genuine, helping me out, and, and, I'm, starting to feel bad, about what I said. And, I call my sponsor and, run it by. I'm like, I think I owe this girl an amends. And, I've already done an 8th and a 9th step, and she was not on it. And I did that 8th and 9th step after the fact of. And, and he's like, you probably do. And, so, we started building this relationship. And, I had the opportunity one night to make amends to her. And, she almost didn't even want to take the amends. And not because, I don't forgive you for what you said to me, but it's okay. Somebody had to be the scapegoat, and why not it be me? And she was genuine. It wasn't cockiness at all. And, and she had, she was a part of Jaden's life. Jaden would be my grandson. She was a part of Jaden's life before Matthew died. And, she hadn't seen Jaden since the funeral. And, my daughter comes into the restaurant for dinner one night with the baby. And I had went to warn her, because there was some bad blood there around that time in October. And, she's like, it's okay. I'm like, all right, And as soon as Jaden walked in the restaurant, that poor girl fucking melted down. And, and for me to have compassion, and anybody that's known me in the past 4.5 years knows damn well I was far from a compassionate person. And, so, I talked to my daughter, and, my daughter's on a different level now, too, And, I've gotten together, with Megan a few times since we started working together with Jaden, so she could spend some time with him. And Jaden, is really happy around her. Not so sure if he might remember her, but whatever it takes to make that child happy is my number one purpose and concern in life today, And, wow. And I'm on an 11th step right now, and I don't even know how self-will ties into this, and I'm in the cabin, looking up self-will in the back of the literature, and how it can apply, because I'm trying to change my story, so I text my sponsor, And, you know, like self-will means stubbornness. You know, synonyms for it: stubbornness, pig-headed, bullheaded, closed-minded, arrogant, conceited. Like, in all them fucking words have described me in recovery, clean in recovery. You know, not so much today. You know, I try to go off my first thought wrong. And if I could just shut the fuck up for a minute and not talk until I like think, or maybe not think, because what you do is really none of my business. And you know, and if like you don't like me, it's probably because we have nothing in common. You know, I don't know. I have to keep it simple. And you know, so working in 11th step, you know, so the prayer and meditation, and you know, and I'm just trying to do something different. You know, self-will. So that's my own thinking, my own behaviors, like, you know, whatever. And, you know, another big one for most of my recovery, and this is the shit that, like, I call it, you know, I texted Darius, I'm like, I'm sick of talking about this already. He's like, okay, yes, I have a male sponsor. He's like, okay, well, go out and do some more stupid bullshit and you can share about that and you'll have a new story. And it's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Like, you know, I've created enough wreckage in my recovery, you know, because I was more worried about him instead of me. And, you know, I'm going through recovery, you know, working steps and, you know, and you know, my sponsor's been my friend since the day I walked in the rooms, you know, because he's always treated me with love and respect and never, like, did that creep shit on me. So, you know, and he's through this whole thing, and I've had him as a sponsor now for 3.5 years. And, you know, he was always asking me, like, where do you find this shit acceptable? Why do you allow this? Where are your boundaries? You know, and of course, every day I'm calling him up, crying, sitting in my garage, looking up at the rafters, wondering if it would just be a little bit easier. You know, because that internal pain, how do you get rid of the internal pain, you know? Early in recovery, I went and got a whole shitload of tattoos. I'm good with that. You know, I've passed that chapter in my life. You know, what do we do now? And, you know, and that was fucked up. And it wasn't until, you know, some people call it getting suggestions from your sponsor. I call it doing what my sponsor says. You know, and I've got to keep it simple because I'm bullheaded, you know, and I have, you know, and the sponsor I have today, he's not afraid of me. He's not afraid of my mouth, and he's not afraid of my attitude, and he'll tell me to sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up, you know, and he never hurts my feelings. And, you know, I don't know, I guess he says it with kindness. I'm not really sure, but it works for me. So, you know, so through this relationship, and the day finally came again, you know, he packs up and leaves. Of course, I call him right away. Because really, I like stood in the middle of my bedroom when I came home from area that day, and him and all of his shit was gone, and I'm going, and I call up my sponsor, and I'm like, he's gone. He's like, good, because you're fucking done. He ain't coming back. You ain't going back. You ain't getting back with him. You ain't getting with nobody else. You're going to sit the fuck down with yourself and work on you. And that's what I did for 10 months. It's not a lifetime, but for an addict, that's a long-ass time, okay? And that's what I did. And you know, and it's, you know, it's funny because I work at a halfway house in Valparaiso, and the week that I started there in October was on a Monday. On Tuesday, Matthew had died. You know, so I'm going through like them first couple weeks where I'm working at respite, while I'm working there, and you know, and I cook dinner for the guys there is what I do. And you know, I was somewhere, I don't know where, you know, a lot of feelings and emotions at that time. My grandson, you know, my daughter that's in the fetal position on the floor. And man, if you're a mother or a grandparent, there ain't nothing worse than seeing your kid in some fucking pain, man. You know, it'll bring me to my knees, and like, I will be acting out on self-will, which is exactly what I did that day after, you know. And so, there's this guy, so, the owner of the house, she's like, you ain't got to do dishes. The guys are supposed to help you, whatever. So, there's always this guy that was in the kitchen that was always there at like my beck and call. Peel potatoes, do dishes, whatever. I'm running around getting clothes for the funeral, this, that, the other. And so I'm divvying out my job to this poor guy, And I called him dude that helps me in the kitchen. And so it's it was probably a couple days after the funeral, and so I'm kind of maybe 2 cells in my brain at that time. And I turn around and, I see this new guy in the house because, it's like a revolving door. Guys come and go. And, I introduce myself. My name's Belinda. I cook here. And I'm like, what's your name? He's like, dude that helps you in the kitchen. And, I'm like, wow. So, for a couple weeks, I kind of, I didn't even look in this guy's eyes. Long story short, we started making meetings together. We started talking. Didn't start, immediately consulted with my sponsor because, I've learned in this process, when I don't do what my sponsor says, I'm going to feel some pain over some shit. Because I always ran on self-will. I would make decisions and then say, oh yeah, hey, by the way, Darius, and that's not the way this program is supposed to work. If I get an idea, I'm supposed to run it by somebody first. And so, I kept him, upbeat on what was going on, and, we took the process slowly, and I was given some assignments, and even he was given an assignment, and, whatever, man, I want something different this time. I don't want the pain and the hurt that my thinking has caused. I have the disease of addiction. I have a thinking problem, and 9 times out of 10, first thought wrong. And, today my hope shot, for any woman sitting in a room in that dysfunctional relationship, whether it be verbal abuse, physical abuse, being controlled, being treated the way you don't want to be treated, being treated in a way that hurts you, the hope shot is that when I worked on myself for a few 24 hours and, stayed alone with me and then followed my sponsor's suggestion, I'm in a pretty healthy fucking relationship today. I'm respected. I'm treated like a lady. I also act like a lady, so that could have something to do with it. I'm not taken advantage of. My feelings matter. My feelings count. If something's bothering me, I can talk about it, and I'm not going to be looked down upon. I'm allowed to share in meetings. I'm allowed to do my hair today. I'm allowed to look nice today, I'm allowed to sleep in bed today. I don't have to sleep on my couch anymore. I'm allowed to eat at the kitchen table with him. I don't have to eat in the front room by myself. All this stupid shit. Ultimately, it was me. I can't blame dude, that dude. I allowed the shit. Why not? Just like when I was out using, I made them decisions to go and do that. And I made them decisions in that relationship that kind of treatment was okay. Because I didn't even like myself. How the fuck could I love another individual? Who was I? What did I like to do? You didn't like something about me? Oh, let me change it for you, Fuck that shit today. I can be me, man, and it is so freeing. I remember used to, I would wake up and for, that split second, like when you got some shit going on in your life, in that split second you wake up and everything's okay until you realize what you're really in or what you're really doing, and, these days I wake up and I'm in a good spot and I stay in that spot all day long, and that is a miracle. The program of Narcotics is Anonymous. I have seen the miracles, not in my own life, but I can see it in your life faster than I can see it in my own life. And, that newcomer that walks in the door that wants this shit, And it doesn't matter how you get here and if you've relapsed or not, just keep coming back. Keep coming back, and one day, hopefully you will get it, I grew up in a family My father was an alcoholic, and I have a younger sister that's 3 years younger than I, and you know, we lived in a fucked up situation. It was what it was, you know. Through the steps, I have come to believe, you know, my father was a man that I hated all of my childhood, not most, it was all. You know, and I can remember, you know, being a kid, you know, under the age of 13, even, you know, being a teenager up until the age of maybe 14 or 15, because that's when I started using. And I used because I wanted to, not because my father was an alcoholic. Treated me badly, like it was my decision, that he had nothing to do with it. But I would pray to God, like, just take him out of my life, fucking kill him, like, do something. And, you know, then, you know, I got clean 20 years ago. I remained abstinent for quite a few years. But when I got clean the first time, somebody had suggested that I write him a letter explaining who I was. And I did that, and, you know, and I always kind of wondered, and we're talking, this was like back in 92. I always wondered, like, if he died, would I just not fucking care? Or would I be devastated? And my dad died in April 2006. And I was devastated. I was devastated. And I'm grateful for that. You know, I really am. He was the way I get my own mind off the hook with the whole situation with him. Because, you know, it says in our, you know, in the steps, you know, what part did I play in the situation? And, like, that question made me so angry in the fourth step. What part did I play in the situation? Like I was a child. And, you know, and it took somebody to tell me you were simply born his daughter. That was it, you know. Keep it simple, stupid. And, you know, and that's it. He was the best father he knew how to be. That was it, and it's okay today. You know, right before he died, I had fallen over a railing 2 stories down through the center of my house, and I shattered my back. Hello, Narcotics Anonymous again, you know. Let's add some feelings and emotions on that. A couple months after that, you know, Dad died. I was devastated. And, you know, it was just off and running. And it had been so long since I had been to a meeting, I forgot I was an addict. For real. 9 years without a meeting's an awful long time. And, you know, I used for 2 years. And at the end, I was dope sick. Because in 2 years, I had never ran out. At that time, I did not realize that it's against the law to have like multiple doctors and multiple pharmacies to aid your addiction. You know, I come to find that out in the rooms as I did step work, you know. Jails and institutions and death is not part of my story. I've never overdosed. I've never been arrested. I've never gone to detox. The day I ran out, I kicked at home. And I came back to Narcotics Anonymous. You know, it was my mother that had called me that Monday morning and said, because she lives over in Illinois, so she has no idea what I do here. You know, she says, Belinda, you got a problem. What are you doing about it? And thank God she made a statement to me and not a question, because had she said, do you have a problem? No, everything's okay. You know, but if you tell me something, I'm going to listen to you. If you give me an option, I'm going to take the softer, easier way out. And, you know, and I'm grateful for that. She's not always been a fan of Narcotics Anonymous. It was right after my 90 days, because this time I was willing to do what it took. That included getting a sponsor, working steps, like whatever. And, you know, after the 90 days, she thought I didn't have to go to meetings no more, like I was cured. But I didn't even really have a problem. I just took a few too many pills. You know, and when my dad died, there was a trust fund left. And, you know, she would give my sister and I, you know, monthly checks. And she, right after my 90 days, you know, she's like, about, you know, the meetings, you don't have to go no more. And I'm like, yeah, I need to go. And, you know, Narcotics Anonymous took me away from her. Narcotics Anonymous taught me that she can't mold me anymore and hold the money over my head to get me to do what I want to do, come and visit, whatever the situation is. And she gave me a choice. She's like, either you continue to keep receiving checks every month out of the trust fund and stop making meetings, or you keep going to meetings and you get no money. I learned early in Narcotics Anonymous that honesty is one of her top 3 spiritual principles, and I could have continued to keep going to meetings and do what I do and tell her I'm not, because she lives there, she does not come here, you know, or I could just be honest, and I chose to be honest. I chose to be honest, and you know, because money's always played a big factor in my life. You know, even as a kid, my parents had money. I never needed or wanted for anything. As I grew up, you know, I had a very good job at one point, making a lot of money. That caused me a lot of unmanageability, abstinent. You know, and today, you know, here's another hope shot for anybody. It is okay, you know. It's okay. I've struggled, but I learned through pain and struggling. And, you know, at one point I had the $250,000 house clean, and, you know, before I came back when I was abstinent. I had the $75,000 a year job. I had the brand new car. I had all that shit. My kids had credit cards, 15 years old. I can remember when I lost my job at the hospital. My youngest daughter, that was 15 at the time, thought that we were destitute and on the poverty level because she did not have her Abercrombie credit card anymore. That is insanity, you know. I caused my kids harm with money, but that's what my dad did for me. You know, never showed me physical love, hugged me, you know, tell me that you love me, just give me and buy me. You know, he bought my love. And I followed that same path in my children's lives up to a point. You know, today I got this great little 1-bedroom apartment. I got this great car out there that runs. My bills are paid. I'm able to come here this year. I was able to go to ISNAC, and my bills are paid. I ain't got money coming out of my ass, but you know what? I'm good. And good is good enough for me today. You know, I don't have to keep up with the Joneses, and I don't have to be somebody that I'm not. You know, I don't have a facade that I have to, you know, that I have to stand by anymore. I can just be me, you know. Getting better one day at a time, and there's hope for me. You know, God's not done with me yet, and I'm excited about life today. You know, I'm grateful for my friends and my network, and multiple networks. You know, Narcotics Anonymous is a worldwide fellowship. You know, and I have people in Illinois, and I have people in Gary and Lake County, Porter County, you know, going into Michigan. Like, I have people, Lafayette, South Bend. Like, I know people around because I keep coming back. I go to events, and, you know, what I'm working on today is not to hurt your feelings no more. You know, because I was really good for go fuck yourself. You know, that was my answer for everything. And, you know, today, if I can just shut up and, you know, I'm not that person like I was first in recovery, standing outside of a meeting door talking about you, you know. And after what I did to Megan back in October, that is the greatest lesson. You know, talk about empathy and forgiveness. What that girl has done for me, and I don't think she understands. And I've tried explaining to her, and I don't think she understands. You know, it's a program of growth, and, you know, anything's possible here. Sky's the limit. That's all I got.
Thank you, Belinda. Awesome job. Our next speaker, as she stands here, is Crystal.
Hi, I'm Crystal. I'm an addict. Hi, Crystal. Can y'all hear me okay? Yep. All right, wonderful. If not, get the CD. Okay, well, geez, so Pete. Okay, so I've been thinking all day, surrendering self-will. And I'm like, I know about that, really? Yeah, apparently so. Because, when I break it down, surrendering is not having to fight anymore. And I think, okay, so not having to fight my own self and basically causing harm to myself, or surrendering to my disease, which today manifests itself in other ways other than using. It's not just limited to using dope, using people. I'm pretty nervous right now. So, in the beginning, I would answer questions, in the step work, and I remember I asked my sponsor, I was like, surrendering, what is that? And she's like, look it up. So I looked it up, and surrendering means not having to fight anymore. And I would answer in the question, what is surrender? And I'm like, well, it's not, having to fight anymore, but what am I fighting? Well, let me tell you, when situations arise, I would fight life on life's terms. I would fight God. I would want my fucking way. I would manipulate. I fucking lie. I wanted my way. And it just happens I can't get my way all the time. And I still don't like it today. But, that doesn't mean that I fight so much anymore. Because I didn't know how to surrender. That's what it was. I didn't know how to surrender without fighting. Through time, step work, and life happening, things are different today with that. And I'm not going to stand here and lie to you and say, I got that shit, because I don't. It's not fucking perfect. It has definitely gotten better, though. A lot better, I still don't get my way all the time, and sometimes I'm like, oh, that blows, I'm fucking tired of this. But, I'm a good one for fighting myself. No, I'm sorry, for fighting God's will. And there are even behaviors I do today that I surrender to my disease. Because, like I said, it's not all about using dope. It's not all about using people. There are behaviors I do today that are fueled by self-will. I also self-mutilate. And this is behavior that has been going on for 23 years of my life. And I am just now at 6 years plus in recovery, just now wanting to work on this behavior. I thought for a long time that I loved myself. And, when I look at myself today from where I've came, it's gotten better, but do I still self-will? Oh, fuck yes. Even though I'm writing about my behaviors, I'm praying about them, I'm talking about them, which is completely new to me. This is something I was so ashamed of that I did to myself, that I wouldn't talk about it. I didn't write about it because then it would be real. I didn't talk about it because I was so ashamed. And I sure as shit didn't pray about it because what could the God of my understanding do for me on that? It was so fueled by self-will, and it still is. It's gotten a lot better, but it's not gone. It's not behaviors that I have completely stopped doing. I still self-mutilate. It's just not as severe. And so although it began as one thing, my recovery is working in different areas of my life today. And if the God of my understanding can bring me here, not only get me clean, but keep me clean, then I'm fairly sure that if I apply these tools to the other areas of my life, the God of my understanding can work out something positive for me and actually loving, not what I misconstrue as loving. Because I sometimes, it's an skewed version of love for me, and it's so funny that for me, I have an easier time loving other people than I do myself. And, and I really do, which is kind of shitty because I've worked really hard to not only love others but love myself. And sometimes I'm convinced that I do when I actually don't. I lie to myself and I buy my own bullshit. And I'm really grateful to be clean, even though I'm still pretty fucked up. I'm still better than I was. Nowhere near where I want to be, and one day I really hope to get there. More than likely, when I find the point of surrender with this and I actually fucking do it, then I'm not going to be running on self-will anymore. And, from experience, God and my understanding will open a door. Because that's what it does for me. So, I really don't think I have much else, I'm just grateful to be here, grateful to be clean, grateful to find out firsthand that the tools of the program don't just apply to being clean. Because once you get clean, you still got a lot of shit to go through inside. And it's not going to happen overnight, and that's very true. But you keep coming back, you stay clean, work on some shit, and it does happen. Miracles happen around here, I've seen them. I've experienced them. But, in this process, I've not quite surrendered with the self-will when it comes to self-mutilation. But, man, I'll tell you what, I used to take a beating before I surrendered to some shit. But now that's lessened today, so I'm very grateful for that. And that's all I really have. Anything else is pretty much just babble, and I'll be repeating myself, which I do too. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Crystal. The floor is open for after comments. Please be aware that you are being recorded. Also, please keep comments brief so that all may have a chance to share.
I'm Rod. I'm an addict. I'm going to talk about Rod's will, and by that I mean self-will. And I have approximately 6.5 years clean, and I've just in the last year come to an understanding that I know when I'm in Rod's will because I don't feel good about it. When I pray and when I talk to my sponsor and others in recovery in my life before making a decision, that's when I can feel what God's will for it is for me. Not that I always do that, because I don't. I'm a messed up addict just like the rest of us. I want what I want, and I want it right now. And sometimes Rod's will is good enough for that. And that's where that first thought thing comes in. First thought is always wrong. Second thought isn't so great either, unless it's the one that says call your sponsor stupid. But I have been getting better. I've been improving on that. Recently, a real good example of my self-will was I decided that I needed to buy a new pickup truck. Went and looked at it, drove it. It was great, bright and shiny. Would have looked great with me driving it. And before I bought it, I called up my wife, and she said a bunch of stuff. Basically told me I didn't need it because I have a nice pickup truck that I drive around in. And I got really mad at my wife when she was telling me this. So I decided, well, I'm going to call my sponsor, and he's going to co-sign my bullshit. I called my sponsor, and I think that him and my wife talked because he said exactly the same thing. He said exactly the same thing to me that she did. The only difference was I didn't get mad at him. I said, okay, you're right. I probably shouldn't buy that bright, shiny pickup because mine is just fine. And I felt good about it then. And I called my wife back, and I says, I was mad at you when I was talking to you. She's like, yeah, kind of figured, but you didn't take it out on me, so that's good, What made you decide not to buy it? I said, well, because I called my sponsor, So I acted in God's will by not doing that, and it felt good. It was the right thing. you know. And I've had other instances recently where I call my sponsor and I talk to him about it, and he sheds some light on the situation, and I go, oh yeah, that's probably what God's will is for me, you know. And just by talking to other recovering addicts, whether it's my sponsor or not, if I talk to two people and they tell me the same thing, and I know they haven't talked to each other, that's probably what's the right thing to do, you know. So I'm trying really hard today in my recovery to not live on Rod's will, because like I said, I don't feel good when I do that. You know, and I like to feel serene. I like the peace that I have in my life today when I'm acting in God's will. And besides that, that's what that third step is about, is turning my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him. You know, and this program has showed me that time and time again. That's all I have to share, except for if you haven't seen a miracle today, go look in the mirror.
Hi. I'm Darlene. I'm an addict. I'm really nervous. Kim talked me into coming up here, so I've never done anything like this before. This is my first time at We Growth Love, and it's really good to be here. It's nice to be around a lot of people in recovery. I have 34 days out of prison today. All right. I've been basically locked up since 2006. I was home for 278 days, home detention, and my mom died September 14th. I relapsed, was back out for 8 weeks, and got rearrested and sent back for 18 more months. Talk about fix, manage, and control and self-will. You know, when I got out of prison after doing 4 years, I went through a recovery program, CLIF program, and I thought I was cured. You know, hey, I'm not an addict anymore. I got 4 years of abstinence, and I went through all this recovery, and I got this. I think they call that grandiosity. And I had a really strong message, and I had a lot of faith that I was going to make it. And life showed up and showed out. I had 2 parents dying, teenagers that I came home to that I didn't know. You know how they can be. Great kids, but, you know, they were running the show. And got involved in a relationship that I shouldn't have immediately through somebody in NA, of course. You know, they tell you to not do that for a year, but, you know, fix, manage, and control. It's my way, right? Not my higher power's way. I got this. I can handle all this. So I piled it all up, and, of course, I relapsed when my mom died when life showed up, and wasn't handling it very well. I put everybody first before my recovery. And I've decided, well, I can't go to a meeting tonight because I got to take care of my mom and dad. I can't go to a meeting tonight because I have to be at my daughter's soccer game. And my son has a football game on Friday. You know, I've been gone all this time. I got to see him play. So, you know, I stretched out everywhere. So I put everybody else's needs before my own. And they say this is a selfish program. Well, it kind of is, you know. You kind of have to be selfish but selfless because Kim talked me into coming up here because I really was nervous by, I don't know, I just feel like I need to talk about it because, you know, maybe to help somebody else. But anyway, so I went out and relapsed and they sent me back, right? So I do 18 more months. Well, 17 and a half, I'll say. I had done a concurrent sentence with Indiana. I was in prison for dealing, and I got busted in Illinois. They ran them concurrent, and I got 14 in Indiana and 10 years in Illinois. And so when I got released, after doing the 4 years, they never gave me a DOC number. So when I went back, I had a detainer from Illinois saying that you got to go there and get a DOC number when you get released here. So they sent me up there. I got released April 4th from Indiana, and the Will County Sheriff's from Joliet, Illinois, came pick me up, took me up there. Well, I don't know if anybody's been in Rockville prison in here before, but really it's not that bad. I mean, it's bad. It's prison. You're away from your family. You're locked up. But, I went to college. I bettered myself while I was there. And even when I went back for my relapse, I went back to the CLIF program, and I spoke, and I chaired meetings, and I did PTSD, and, I did relapse prevention, and, it was all about getting better because I got to go home and do this, right? And I'm tired and devastated. While I was locked up, my dad passed away after I lost my mom, and my dad passed away after I got locked back up. So it was just a lot of loss. Everybody turned their back on me, and only my NA family stood beside me through this 18-month bit. That's all that was there. That was the only family I had. I'm so grateful for that. And I just never had believed that it would be somebody that I had just met or just hadn't known very long would stand up and be there for me. Anyway, I don't want to take up a lot of everybody's time, but I had a really spiritual experience when I got set down this time. I kind of just gave up and I surrendered. You were talking about surrendering. I finally gave up and I surrendered and I gave it to God, and that's my higher power. Everybody else is different. But anyway, I gave it to him and I just let him have control. And, I'd call home boo-hooing and crying, and he'd be like, man, suck it up. This is my NA person. I'm not going to say their name, but I'd call up and he'd say, man, suck it up. Learn how to crochet or something. You're going to have to get through it. You did it. This is the consequences of your actions. You knew what you were doing. And, I really thought that one relapse, that one probation violation wasn't going to send me back to prison. I thought, they'll slap me on the hand. I'm good. I'll get locked up. I'll get clean again. And, I was trying to get clean. I hated being an addict. I hated it. And I hated that I went back out and used. I was so mad at myself. And I was 90 pounds when I got to the county. I was almost dead anyway. And, I just wouldn't give it up. I kept fighting. And finally, I was like, I gotta, going through my relapse prevention and my PTSD, and journaling the whole time. From the day I got locked back up, I started journaling. Tools of recovery, right? You don't realize you know as many as you do till you're sat down by yourself and you gotta figure it out. And through journaling and going back into reading what I wrote, and praying, I was on my knees this time. Well, when I got released from Indiana and they sent me to Illinois and they put me in Joliet, Will County Sheriff's Department, you're in little 2-man cells with a window this big. I was locked up with a gangbanger from Chicago, the Scorpions. She was a trip. She was all right. She was a trip. And I just never had experienced any kind of, I've been locked up but not experienced time like that. We're let out 15 minutes a day. And then I go to court in front of the judge, and he's like, we're sorry, you're 2 years past your out date. We'll just process you and release you. Well, they don't process you and release you in Illinois. They send you down to the prison. And I was like, okay, well, they better get this done. 15 days I sat there before they took me down, locked up like that in a 2-man cell, no TV, no nothing, just locked up. And if they let us out 15 minutes, we were lucky to get that shower. But when they took me down to Logan Prison, I don't know, you watch prison shows on TV, and they have a building that's called the X building. They took me in there, and I was like, oh my God, where have I gone? I mean, it was hell. I was scared. And I don't scare easy. But anyway, I was like, this is crazy. Here I am sitting in Logan Prison when I'm all done with my time, and God's just not letting me go home. And what's he trying to tell me? I got this, you're scaring me to death. I'm scared. I'm here by myself. And like I said, I don't scare easy. I've been through too much. And here comes the counselors. 3 of them are in over me. They're like, well, you're all done with your time. You're getting immediately released. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Because I was in this place that I was like, they're throwing shit off the catwalks, and all the girls are locked up, no showers, 4 or 5 days. They get out, to take a shower. They give you 2 rolls of toilet paper a week if you run out. Oh, well. It was all dark. They cavity search. They make you stand there for 20 minutes and check every orifice of your body, and they check all your tattoos, and they write everything down. You're just standing there naked going, yeah, okay, I'm so humiliated, what's next? And so they're like, you're getting released. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you, Jesus, and I'm about on my knees right there going, I'm going home. This is great. I get to go home. I'm finally done with all this time. It's over 7 years and it's over. And they go, no, you can't go home. I go, what do you mean I can't go home? They said, you can't go back to Indiana. You're going to have to talk to parole and get it transferred. It could take up to a year. We're sending you to a homeless shelter on Canal Street in Chicago. Pacific Guard mission. So I end up going up there, and I'm devastated getting sent there. You know, here it's, by the time I get there, I get released, they walk me to the gate and give me $10. Here you go. So I got to go up to this mission, and I get up there, and I've never experienced anything like that in my life either. You know, I'm waiting to go upstairs, and there's 400 people sitting there, and I'm in this place, and I'm scared out of my mind going, what is next? Oh my God, and nobody, you know, I'm by myself. You know, I don't know anybody there. I'm all alone, and terrified. And they finally call us upstairs. You know, they take 10 people up at a time. They take your clothes, they put them in a hot box to kill the lice and stuff. They run you through a shower, and they hand you some pajamas, and I'm mad about this thin, and you're in this big warehouse, and they lay me on the floor. And I'm looking at, it was the last day it snowed in April. So I'm looking out this window, and it's like 3 in the morning, and I'm hanging on to my shoes for dear life and my bottle of shampoo, because they said, hang on to your stuff, you can't, somebody will steal it, and have my cross on my neck. And I just couldn't go to sleep. I was really scared, and I looked up at the window, and it was snowing and raining, and I looked around me, and there's all these people. There are older people, younger people, people with babies, women in walkers. You know, they're 70, 80 years old, and this is their life, man. This is all they have, is this homeless shelter, no clothes, no nothing. And I'm looking out this window going, and I got chills saying it right now, because I know God spoke to me that night. He said, this is it. This is your bottom. Because if you don't change right now, it's over for you. And it was. It was. I swear he spoke to me that night. And I'm not a real Susie Christian, you know, go to church every Sunday, but that was life-changing for me. Man, I'm scared to death. I won't even think about it now. You know, I've only been out 34 days, and I know I got a long road ahead, but man, I ain't never been so rock bottom in my life. You know, you think after doing 4 years, but that was my bottom, and it was rough, and I don't want to go back there anymore. And drugs took me to some really horrific places. Those are war stories. I know you guys all heard them, but this is my self-will story. You know, I can't control anything. It's it's his way, not mine. You know, I can control my using, and I decide that that's not even an option today for me. You know, there's no going backwards. You know, it's only forwards from here. And I came home, I don't have anything. I'm homeless, was homeless. Bruce Smith gave me a place to stay, and he's been one of the best friends that I've ever had. Stood by me the whole year, took care of me down at the prison, gave me the bullshit on the phone. You know, it's your fault, you did it, suck up and take it, which I needed to hear. I didn't need no more of this baby and shit. I needed to hear the truth, you know, and nobody wanted to give it to me straight. But my NA family did. And, you know, I'm real grateful for that. But I came home homeless, penniless, nothing, you know, nothing. And you know what? I'm finally at peace. I finally am not stressed out anymore. I don't worry anymore. I'm at peace. Like, I know God's got me because he told me so. You know, I know that sounds really, maybe to some of you crazy, but really, I just knew at that moment things were going to be okay, you know. And the next day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my parole officer showed up at the homeless shelter, and those ladies at the homeless shelter came and got me. They said, you got to eat something, and they were so kind to me because they knew I was nervous, and they're like, you need clothes? What do you need? Here, we got you. They sat me down, they ate lunch with me, they consoled me because they knew I was nervous, and I just couldn't believe the treatment. The way their kindness was so extraordinary. And like I said, that was just new to me. I think that, you know, I want to do something like that, work in a mission, feeding people on the holidays or something. But anyway, I had that $10 in my pocket. It was all the money I had. So when I walked out the door, and I know we're not supposed to say good things that we do, but I was just like, I went to leave, and I go, hey, wait a minute, because they finally let me go home. They let me go to my brother's in Illinois. So I went there for 10 days, and then I got to come back to Indiana. That was by the grace of God, too, a whole nother story. But I got to come back. It was a mistake in the paperwork. And anyway, I handed that $10 to that lady, and she's like, no. I'm like, no, man, feed somebody else, because the kindness from those people, you know, in service work, you know, doing something for somebody else. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out. That's my self-will story. I'm not in control anymore. Thanks, guys, for listening.
Anybody else? No takers, huh? Ready? All right, I guess we'll close this with a group hug and serenity prayers. Circle up. Campers.